All right, in Sefer Bereshit, yes, we're going to Bereshit. There's maybe one of the most fundamental verses in the whole entire Torah. And the pasuk, the verse says the following: Al ken yazov ish et aviv ve'et imo ve'davak beishto v'ayu lebasar echad. Therefore, man would leave his parents' house, his father and his mother's house, and he would, call it, stick to his wife, and then they're going to become one flesh. Now, we need to understand that this pasuk, this verse was said, again, it's very fundamental, before there was Am Yisrael, before the Torah was given, before there were even commandments. It was said when, at a time where humanity, the whole humanity was still Adam and Eve, and not Adam and Steve, Adam and Eve. Only, that's it. And maybe because of that, it is a description of, it's not a description of, call it a relationship, but rather a existential foundation or infrastructure of the life of a person himself. It's a very important pasuk. Whether it's our sages or the commentators, Mekubalim, many thinkers always went back again and over again over this verse, because it touches in a very specific, deep point of our lives. How is a person, or how can a person become whole through a relationship, through a kesher, through a connection? So we need to understand that in the pasuk itself, in that verse, there are three different stages. There are stages also in the life of the individual. So it says, Al ken yazov ish et aviv et imo. Therefore, a man should leave his father and mother. Stage number one. Stage number two, v'davak beishto, and he attached himself to his wife. And then, v'ayu lebasar echad. And then they become one flesh, they become one entity. So when we say, let's look at the word Ya'azov. What does the word Ya'azov would leave or would let go? Basically comes to represent the courage to separate. The courage to separate. The pasuk does not say a person should forget, ve'ishkach, right? Will forget. It doesn't say would disown. It doesn't say would rebel. He says would leave. Leaving is not disconnect. Leaving is not disconnection. I'm leaving, it doesn't mean I'm disconnecting from you. Right? Leaving is a spiritual movement which is very gentle but yet very brave. It's the ability to say, whatever I received from my parents is dear to me, it is important to me, but I cannot stay within this relationship as a child forever. In order to build a true connection, a true relationship, I need to come out of my initial place. Because within the format of my household, I'm always going to be my father's child, my mother's child, and the interaction will be as a father to a child. Thus, in a way, do not allow me to grow and to develop. I need to transform myself from a kid into an individual. And to become an individual, I need to leave. Chazal emphasized to us that even after marriage, right, a person still needs to fulfill kabed et aviv v'chava et imecha. You need to still fulfill the mitzvah of respecting your father and your mother. And it's still valid, and you're still obligated for that regardless of how many kids you have, even if you become a grandfather. But the weight, in other words, the central point of your soul is not there anymore. You are not there at your parents' house anymore. You moved out. A person that does not really leave might, and most likely always does, would enter or bring into the relationship his mother and his father, into his personal relationship between his wife. He will bring his parents into the decisions. He will bring his parents into the fightings and the arguments, which always happen. And if you think that you're going to get married and there's not going to be any arguments and there's not going to be any fighting and so on and so forth, you are absolutely wrong. And if you do experience this kind of a life that you don't have any arguments with your wife, I would be very concerned about where the relationship is going, if it's going at all anyway. A person that does not leave also would bring his parents into their expectation into your life. At that point, you don't live your life. And as a matter of fact, there's no more two in this relationship. It's not you and your wife, but rather three or four, or sometimes entire generations into this relationship, right, of your husband and wife, because you have your grandparents, and now your parents are obligated by your grandparents, and you don't have a free choice because you have to, obey everybody else's will. So how are you going to live your life like this? How are you going to build something? You can't do that. And that's terrible. And after you basically leave, you need to have a certain, that leaving or departing requires maturity. Believe it or not, many people who don't leave that relationship, regardless of the age, are very immature. Some people don't want to mature and therefore deliberately stay within this relationship where daddy and mommy and daddy make their decisions to all your life all the time. Right? They tell you what to do with your money, tell you how to live your life, how to talk to each other, and so on and so forth. Right? You could be like almost 40 years old and your mommy still runs your bank account, which is pretty bad. It's pretty pathetic. It's pretty bad. Nobody would. I mean, you by living life like this, you are taking away any chance you have to be able to have any relationship, and if you have one, to have an actually healthy relationship. That departure needs presence. What does it mean, presence? To be present? In other words, first of all, stop blaming everybody. Many times people stay in this relationship because that provides them with the ability to blame something or someone for whatever is happening or not happening in their lives. No. I can't do it because of my parents. I can't do this because of my mother. I can't do this because of my father. I can't do this. It's not because you really don't want to do anything, but you basically using your parents in the wrong way. So how does this sit? And don't tell me it's out of respect. This is absolutely lack of respect when you do that, when you blame your parents for decisions that you make to stay in this relationship. You need to leave. You need to go. And at that point, when you are present in your own life, you have to stop blaming your parents. You have to stop blaming your childhood. You have to stop blaming the past, whatever happened in the past. They said, live in the past, move on, move on. You need to leave, to go. And you see that before Avraham Avinu was able to become who he is, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to him, Lech lecha, go, get out. You cannot reach your potential when you're still at your homeland, at your family life, at your father's life, and so on. Lech lecha me'artzecha, me'lodecha, me'bet avicha. That's exactly the process that the Torah told Avraham Avinu. If Avraham Avinu would have still stayed by his father, we would not be here. Am Israel would not be here. The whole entire world would look a completely different place than what it is today. Avraham Avinu said, listen, buddy, I don't want to go. I'm comfortable here with my parents. I got to do kibud avayim. I'm not leaving. I mean, Terach could have said to Abraham, listen, buddy, that's how we do it in our family. You're not allowed to leave. You're going to stay here until the rest of your life. You can't leave. That's how we do business in this family. The whole entire world will look different. The Torah would not have been given. Who knows what will happen in the world? Who knows if there will be a word? And so therefore, you need that maturity. Only a person who assumes responsibility on his life, I'm going to tell you this straight out. Straight out. Only a person who is willing to take responsibility for his life can truly love. If you don't take responsibility for your life, don't tell me you love anybody. You can't do it. First of all, in terms of love, is a matter of responsibility. If you cannot be responsible in your own life, you cannot be responsible for anybody else, including this relationship. You are not able to truly love. That's why I keep saying, you got to be responsible. Stop blaming everybody. That verse that we are talking about is not talking about emotion. This verse does not guarantee you happiness. That does not guarantee you. But it offers you an existential stance a way to actually stand on your own 2 feet in your own life. And that departure in which the Torah talking about is not the departure of people, but rather departure from dependency. If you are not dependent on yourself, you're always dependent on someone else, you're going to be resentment. You're going to be resentment. So you need to be able to depart to do that. And that is a moment when a person stops saying, this is how I was educated, this is my culture, this is how we do it, this is how I was hurt, that's how I was taught to, that's how people taught me to love, that's what it is, right? And he's taking responsibility on his own choices. If your father experienced or expressed, certain emotions towards your mother, it doesn't mean that you gotta follow it. And that's, for example, when people are dating, and right away they're saying, well, I don't know if I should date this person because their parents are divorced. Look, truth of the matter is, has nothing to do with the parents are divorced or the parents are deceased or they live with each other and so on. That has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the person. How does the person actually respond to those things? You got to look at the person, not at all the other stuff. Other stuff is just extra curriculum on the side. Look at the person. If a person is assumed to assume responsibility, is able to assume responsibility, and you say, yeah, listen, my parents are divorced, but I don't want this. Well, you got to look at a person. Because a person could have with healthy, beautiful family, mommy and daddy all getting all together, but they form a certain dependency. That's the wrong person to be with. That's the wrong person to be with. You can go with a person who had to go through the rough and tumble of life. Right? We grew up without a daddy, or without a mommy, or whatever it is, or the parents were divorced. But assume full responsibility over their lives. That's the kind of person you want to be with. Whether the parents are married or not married, that doesn't mean that you're going to marry the right person. You gotta look at the person. You're not marrying the parents. You're marrying the person. Gotta look at the person. The same thing as you should not be looking at daddy's bank account. You should not be looking at the parents' relationship. That's how they chose to live their lives. That's not your business, not anybody's business. You need to look at the person. How did they respond to their lives? And the most, I would say, indicator whether you should date this person or not is try to measure their responsibility. If the person, is not a responsible person, well, stay away from them like the plague. People who are not responsible, it's a recipe for disaster. And sometimes people do develop an appetite for disaster. Sounds like a Guns N' Roses album. But the music over there is much better off than most people's life. It looks terrible. People like that. Why? Because they want that chaos, they want that negativity, because they will give them a platform where they don't have to do anything with their lives. They can continue doing absolutely nothing with their lives without assuming responsibility. That's why responsibility for me is one of the most important qualities in a person. So instead of asking those stupid questions that people ask in Shidduchim, all the open questions that everybody tells you to ask and all this stupid advice from people, just look at the person. Is they a responsible person or not? You figure out a way. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. You figure out a way to measure how this person that you are dating is a responsible person or not. I mean, there are many ways to do it, and that's beyond the scope of what I want to do now. So you got to take this into account. You got to take it into heart. Responsibility. So there is a certain basic freedom that nobody can take from you. Nobody can take it away from you. And that's the ability or the freedom to choose your stand, to choose your opinion, to choose where you are. Emda in Hebrew, emda mishum la'amod. Where are you standing? You choose where you're standing. In other words, your position is indication of where you're holding in life right now. And nobody will take it away from you. In other words, whether you admit it or don't admit it, you own it. You own it. So when we say depart, it really means a person stop living from a reactive point of view, always reacting to things. He never takes an initiative in his life. And when you take an initiative in your life, it means that you live from a choice. You make the choice. That's why I took the initiative. And a person sits like this all day long and want the man to come from the heavens. That's not going to happen. Even the man, you had to go out and collect. Even the man, you had to go to collect. You have to do something with it. You don't just go outside, open your mouth, and I don't know, baklava comes down from the heavens straight into your mouth. You got to do something. So you got to take an initiative in your life. Without this kind of a departure, the connection that you have would really become, and that's what most people do when they approach shidduchim, when they approach looking for the soulmate, for a husband or for a wife, is basically an effort not to stay lonely or to stay alone. It's not to find their soulmate. It's not to stay alone. I don't want to be lonely. If that's your case, guess what? Don't marry a wife. Go get yourself a poodle. Get yourself a goldfish if you don't want to be alone. The effort without that ability to be able to stand and to live life by a choice, to take an initiative in your life, everything that you have to do, it's all an effort to be saved, to be redeemed from loneliness. And when this is the attitude, and this is exactly where you're holding, you're never going to truthfully meet the other person. Because the other person only comes here to serve a purpose in your life, not to be alone. There's a song, kind of depressing song by Neil Young. It's called "A Man Needs a Maid." It's basically what it is. You're not looking for a wife, you're looking for a maid. You want a woman who will fulfill your fantasies on one hand, clean up the house like a maid, and in other words, will also be mommy on the other hand. I mean, this is not a true relationship. And all the problem comes with that. And if you have children as a result of that, well, it will affect the way you interact with your kids. It will affect the way you interact with your kids. So this pasuk, as we said before, came before there was society, before there was a framework, before there was order. A person will stand in front of one question which is very important. How do I choose to be in a relationship without giving up my freedom? And that's also another problem that we have. Many people are so controlling that they are looking to take away the freedom of the other person, and everything has to be their way, and that's not good. Now let me ask you a question. I know of someone who was a secular Jew, and he met this lady. They're older, I don't remember, maybe they were in the 40s or 50s or whatever it is. And she was very wealthy, but she was religious. And she said to him, I'll be willing to marry you, because he offered her to get married, if you will become an observant Jew. And you would say, well, good for her. He said to her, well, I think this kind of an attitude will affect our relationship. So I'm going to be healthy. She says, why? He says, well, if we are wanting to build here, and I'm not talking from a theological point of view, I'm talking about here from a personal point of view. If we are trying to build here a relationship, so how about you want me to come your way? How about you come your way, my way? In other words, as much as you want me to be religious, observant, I want you to become secular. Are you willing to become secular for me? And she said no. So he said, okay, I guess our relationship is not going to work. Again, I'm not talking about here in terms of like, yes, you should have been shomer Torah mitzvot, keep the mitzvot, keep the command, being observant. I'm not talking about that. We're talking about relationship-wise. So if, for example, you're going on a date and the girl only wants to date when it's comfortable for her, she's not willing to do anything to accommodate you. Let's say, for example, you have a zman kavua. This is a certain time they'll learn. No. So you know that there's, in a way, no point of continuing or even starting on this date because this person is not willing to live life appropriately, to build their relationship. They're there to, excuse me?
To compromise?
It's not compromise. It's trying to make things work. It's not compromising. Compromising means I'm giving up. It's not, in a way, yes, and in a way, no. It's not really compromising. It's willing to build together a relationship. I'm not here to decorate your life, and you're not here to decorate my life. I want to say everybody, oh, listen, by the way, here's my wife, and by the way, this is my car, this is my dog, this is my boat, this is not. This is my wife, and everything else is ours. That's why I don't understand couples who have separate bank accounts. I don't understand that. It's us. There's no you and me anymore. It's us. And if you say it's my money and your money, excuse me, where's the rabbi? Let me get a get, because we are doing something wrong here. Either that or go to therapy, but we're doing something wrong here. And it's something that is basic. Basic. It's not, argument's sake. Let's say, I don't know, my wife likes to live in New York City. I don't want to live in New York City. I would rather live in, I don't know, I'm not talking about a place that we will both be happy. Let's say, for example, in Tzfat or something like this, right? I would like to, what?
Wisconsin.
I'm not going to Wisconsin. I'm lactose intolerant. I cannot live in Wisconsin.
Dallas.
I don't want to live in Dallas. So let's say I would like to live in Wyoming. My wife said, what in the world are we going to do in Wyoming? So she doesn't say my way or the highway. I don't say my way or the highway. We say, okay, let's try to do what's best for us. And what's best for us, I'm willing to give up what I think is best for me on the what's good for us. Because the me does not exist. From this point on, it's only us. You need to understand that. This, you need to do the assortment before you get married. Before you get married. Because otherwise you're going to start making excuses why you need to stay in this unhealthy relationship. So now, how could I choose, or how do I choose to stay in a relationship without giving my freedom and without escaping the responsibility for mutual life, for life together? How do I do that? So now we're going to bring us to the second stage. Sit down.
I don't want to say that.
Okay. So it's the second stage is this is v'ya'azov, and live. Here now we're going to Dvak, Dvak means will represent a daily choice that you make every day. The word Dvak is not accidental. It wasn't just picked like that. Dvak, which is Dalet Bet Kuf, is a substance that actually connects things together, like basically glue, right? So we take two different things and then we put them together without erasing their individuality. Mm-hmm. Right? If I'm going to take, for example, metal and wood and I glue them together, the wood doesn't become metal, the metal doesn't become glue, they become two pieces, but they are together, the one entity together. I'm gluing them together, I'm connecting them together without losing their identity. That is something very important in a relationship. How do you stay in a relationship? Or is your relationship a relationship that allows you to contribute without losing your identity? If you go out with a person who likes to erase your identity, or you don't count, well, it's something that you should not even go on a date for. Just, excuse me, not for me. Move on. It's like no offense meant, but not for me. So the Torah does not say v'yitached and united. The Torah says v'davak. In other words, the connection is not natural or necessarily natural by itself. It's something that takes effort, right? It needs some actions. You need to maintain it also. You need to go back and you need to invest in it. Like, for example, when you put mortar and you're building a brick wall, which is nice and solid and so on and so forth, you got to maintain the pointing there, because sometimes the weather will come in and would you got to come in and fix it and scrape it and put new mortar in to hold it together so the wall would not fall apart. Well, this is exactly what it is. In other words, after you decided to live, that you need to understand that in order to maintain this relationship, you need to maintain it every single day. The fact that you made your vows, to your husband or wife, whatever, you're going to be each other, blah blah blah, the whole entire thing, and so on and so forth. It doesn't mean that you made a promise once in a lifetime, or you renew your vows, which is a new baloney that people come up with 20 years later. Listen to renewing my vows. Your vows need to be renewed every single day. Your obligation, your commitment to your spouse has to be renewed every single day. You need to maintain it. You need to take care of it every single day. That dvikut that we are talking about, that attachment that we are talking about, is a choice that you make daily to choose to be able to see the other person even if he's different than me. In other words, it doesn't mean that my wife and I have to agree on everything that we go, whether it's politics or how we go, I'm able to accept the person even though he's different than me, even though when I'm actually disappointed by them, I still need to accept it the way it is. Even when it's not, the person does not fulfill the illusion of which we thought or what we had in our mind that he would be or she would be in the future. Well, that's what it is. I made a commitment and I'm staying with it. I thought, my husband is going to have six-pack forever, and all of a sudden he has like a little beer, a big beer belly or whatever it is. He has a keg there, not six-pack. He has a keg. It's okay. Things change. We change too. Your wife doesn't look as skinny as she used to look when she was 20 years old. And now she's, 60, 70, or whatever years old. Nature and gravity has its own toll. Or you thought your husband is going to be this great warrior and end up to be a little scaredy cat. It's okay. It's okay. Because if you keep on pretending, you're never going to see who the real person. So you need to understand, you need to allow the person to be who they are. The Ramban writes that Dvikut, when we talk about Dvikut, it's not a physical Dvikut, it's not a physical glue, but rather a spiritual glue. Right? It's a connection of a will. The Dvikut means I choose, and that, by the way, when we're talking about Dvikut in Hashem, it's the same thing. And that's what I'm saying to you. If you have a problem establishing a relationship with God Himself, which is the easiest thing in the world to have a relationship with, I'm really doubtful that you're going to have a relationship with another person, or a wife or a husband. If you cannot have a healthy, normal relationship of choosing every single day, Dvikut in Hashem doesn't mean that I'm just going to depart from this world and sit down and meditate until I'm going to melt the stone that I'm sitting on. That doesn't mean that. That means that every single day I make a choice to have a relationship with God. That's what Dvikut means. Every single day I choose to have a relationship with my wife. Every single day I choose to have a relationship with the Torah. We have a relationship, and as having a relationship, it means I need to maintain it. In order to maintain it, I need to choose to invest in it every single day. If you are a lazy person, you're going to make a horrible spouse. You need to understand. The Dvikut is also a choice every single day of loyalty. I need to stay loyal to my wife. I need to stay loyal to my God. I need to stay loyal to my people. Not because I have to, because I want to. It's a whole different way, because I want to. If you have a need to control yourself. Make a choice every single day and make sure you live accordingly. Don't control others, control yourself. Right? Every single day, when you're talking about Dvikut, is we choose to live together. Right? So therefore it doesn't make me less of a man if I'll do the dishes. If my wife is working, she doesn't need to come home and to do a pile of dishes. It's not a problem. It doesn't make me less of a man because I choose to do it. So therefore, it's not a problem for me to do dishes. It's not a problem for me to do laundry. It would not be a problem for my wife to go to work so I can go to learn. Because we chose this together. I didn't say, well, you got to go to work and I'm going to sit down and learn. No, we chose what's going to be good for us. In a deeper look, the Kabbalah teaches us that man and woman are two different souls. They're completely separated in its root. And marriage is the effort of so-called the world to bring this unity together that was lost. It was separated, and now we need to bring it together. Not always with success. There's no guarantee of success. Not always with perfection. It's never going to be perfect. But always with yearning, with love. In a deeper meaning of love, not love of Dr. Love. We're talking about love. That's something that's good for cows or for animals, not for us. But we're talking about love means the love, and I told you many times, is the manifestation of the word one. If there is a you and a me, there's never going to be one, and there is never going to be love. So therefore, if you so-called want to make love to your wife, that's not a problem. You can just do the dishes because you just feel one with her. You feel that she's tired. You feel that she's exhausted. So washing the dishes could be the greatest act of making love. I'm washing the dishes for her. Or I'm doing you a favor, I'm like hanging something on the wall. So you hang something on the wall, there's dust on the floor. Just pick up, you Your hunger shelf is very nice. Go, Chazak Baruch, very good for you. But just pick up the dustpan and just clean up after your wife. Why should your wife clean this for you? You see something on the floor, don't wait for her to do it. You do it yourself. That's an act of love. You got it all wrong. Love is not something that it's something that happens to us. It's something that we do. That dvekut, that attachment, is not a prolonged desire or lust, but rather a small, quiet commitment to be present and for responsibility and for an effort. To be davuk, in other words, to attach, to glue, it means to choose in the connection, choose that connection, not because it's convenient to us, but rather because it has meaning to us. And if you solve that, if you're able to do so, there's not going to be a problem with you wanting to cheat on your wife or your wife cheating on you. That's not going to be, it's not even come to term. So there's no problem of trusting one another. This is a connection that is not only asking what am I getting, but also what am I becoming from this connection, from this meeting of husband and wife. Who did I become? Have I become a better person or a worse person? You're never going to be the same. You're going to become either better or worse, and you choose. That brings us to the last part, and that's going to be Vayu lebasar echad, and they became one flesh. That is the unity, again, as we said, that does not cancel you as an individual. Basar echad does not mean the cancellation of the I, of who I am. On the contrary, this is a situation that allows every one in the party, the husband and the wife, to bring themselves as a whole to the table. That's why you need to work on yourself, that you have something to bring to the table before you go on dating. What do you bring to the table? Bringing money is not something you bring. The money is not you. That's for fools. What do you bring to the table in terms of your persona? Are you a kind person? Are you what are you bringing to the table? What are you doing to bring to the table? Or you think that going to school and getting a degree would make you, that's wrong. Or making money, that's wrong. That's a fool, things like that. You want to know why so many people get divorced? It's because of that. They didn't bring anything from themselves to the table. They're empty. And because if you're going to bring your whole self and her whole self and allow each other to bring that, you created something else. The third aspect comes on, and that's the connection, the kesher, the connection. So kesher mishum likshor, in Hebrew to tie, is kesher, the connection, is we tie each other to ourselves. I'm one end of the rope, you're the other end of the rope, and together we're making one long rope, and we're reaching out. And by the way, that's the whole process of tshuva. And when a person says, you know what, I did what I did, the Kadosh Baruch Hu says, okay, I accept you and you accept me, so you're going to give up a little bit from yourself, from your length, and I'm going to leave a little bit from myself, and we're going to tie the knot. And if you have a rope that, let's say, it's like 10 feet long, and you cut it in half, exactly 5 feet and 5 feet, then you're going to make a knot that's going to be, it's not going to be 10 feet anymore. It's going to be less than that. In other words, when you make tshuva, you're getting closer and closer and closer. The same thing with a husband and wife. When I'm willing to bring myself, and you allow me to bring my whole entire thing, we're becoming closer together. And that's very, very important. Chazal tells us that basar echad, that really means the baby, having children. But that's beyond the pshat, beyond the obvious thing, that yul basar echad, that child also represents something else. It's not just, okay, I'm going to have somebody to carry my name, but it represents a continuity of creation. We created together, we created a child. That's why a child should grow in a healthy relationship where there is a mother and there is a father, not two mothers and not two fathers, and not a mother by herself and a father by himself, because I just feel that's a very selfish act. If you are a single parent because of circumstantial things, it's okay. But to choose to bring a child alone to this world, you're taking away a lot from your child. You're not giving the child the appropriate tools. And so before you have kids, you got to work on all these things that we said beforehand. Child represent the future. What will happen in the future generation. A relationship that does not create, right, or is always a creation that, or relationship that involves, it's a relationship that does not create emotions, feelings. It's not a spiritual or real relationship, because it stays static, right? It's like a stone, and a stone will be. That's exactly what the Torah says. A person cannot elevate himself spiritually. Like, how can a person learn when there is a big stone around his neck? It's not that marriage is a heavy knock around his neck. You cannot be able to grow spiritually if you stay static in a relationship with another woman. If your relationship with your wife is static, yes, it becomes heavy. It becomes like a burden on your neck. You're not going to be able to move anything, or yourself, to that matter. True unity is not just identity. True unity is really harmony. Like two different voices that are different voices create a harmony. If we're going to have the same identical voice and we're going to sing together, it's not going to sound so harmonious as we're going to have a variety of voices. That's why in a choir, you have the baritone, you have the bass, you have the tenor, you have all these voices, and all the voices together create a harmony. If you want to listen to good harmony, for example, in terms of music, listen to music by Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. They have different voices, but together they create beautiful harmonies. Harmony only creates when there is difference in the voices. If you want to see what not harmony is when they go into the studios and they duplicate your own voice, and it's not harmonious at that point, because it's just like an echo. An echo is not harmony. When one of the parties of the relationship, so-called, disappears, there's no unity, and there is a dependency, and each one stands on himself, and therefore there's no unity. There is loneliness. There's no unity, there's loneliness. There comes the Pasuk and teaches us that perfect balance, or the really precise balance in that. Right? You need to leave, but not to disconnect. You need to attach and not to be swallowed, to be one without stopping becoming two. In other words, you need to create that harmony. The unity in which the Torah is talking about is not self-dismissal, but rather a merge that erases the boundaries. Unity of a meeting between two people that are not escaping their loneliness, but rather choose to stay together and carry together the burden of life. Together, under the stretcher, going together. That's one of the reasons that in the military, they put somebody on the stretchers and they make you carry the weight together. Only through this difficulty of carrying things together, we become a unit, we become an operational unit. We could be great fighters and great warriors, but if we don't know how to carry the weight together, we're all going to lose in the world. We're all going to lose in the world. If you have a whole unit of Rambos, you're lost. You need to have the individual, he's important, and his contribution to the team. Whether it's Delta Team, whether it's Navy SEALs, they all work as great individuals who contribute to the team. The team is what's important. And so is to communal life. And so that's why I don't like communities that as an individual I don't have a way to express myself. Even it could be super orthodox. If there's a community or society that does not allow me self-expression, so I could contribute. That's not something for me, that's not something I want to be in. Good for you, you like it, go ahead, and I'm going to tell you what to do with your life. But for me, that's not going to work. I'm out of here. At that point, I would rather be somewhere stuck in like Wyoming than to be in a community in Williamsburg where I cannot have my self-expression. Because that self-expression would have to come out one way, and I'm not quite sure I will be able to control that outcome, and I don't know what's going to be out of it. So you got to be very careful also where you live, right? This dvekut is not perfection or romantic perfection, right? It's not going to be this romantic, butterflies, every time you see butterflies. It's not. But rather, we need to look at it as a joint creation. It's like some kind of a masterpiece that we're creating together over years. You bring your ideas, and I bring my ideas to create something together. It's a yetzirah formation of something. It's almost like becomes an art project. Dvekut is the space in which the connection itself is able to carry its meaning. You're creating a space for the relationship to be meaningful. That's the Dvekut. That's what we are doing. Not because there's no suffering in that relationship. Not because that there is loyalty. The pasuk, in a way, is a call for life. It tells you how to live life. Not just how to get married and so on and so forth. Also how to live life. The pasuk is not just about marriage. It's about any relationship that you have. Whether it's a relationship with you and your wife, and you and your husband, you and God, you and your friends, you with your children, you with yourself. You with yourself also. And why is that? Because the pasuk comes and teaches us about our abilities to really leave behind old thoughts and old habits that we have, just like Avraham Avinu. The greatness of Avraham Avinu that he was able to do so. And Avraham Avinu is within each and every one of us, so we could do it as well. To stick to the truth, and to stick to one person, to create a new unity in the world, and especially in the world of today that is very easy to escape, to change, to give up, and so on and so forth, right? I don't have to invest anything. I don't have to sit down and actually talk to you. I don't have to invest in myself so I can have something to talk with my wife. I'm going to sit on my phone. She's going to sit on the phone, and that's the end of the story. That's terrible. It's very easy today to escape that. On the contrary, in our time and age, this pasuk, this verse becomes even more crucial to a healthy human beings, a healthy society. That pasuk comes to tell us or help us, or gives us the courage to grow, the courage to turn a relationship from a place of just a relationship to a place of tikkun, of fixing this world, the tikkun olam. Without freedom, this connection will seem like prison. Without commitment, the connection is going to stay very fragile and very temporary. The pasuk comes to teach us a new way, which was a very difficult but yet deep way, to live in order to be free, to attach, not only to live for myself, to be one, not as a promise for happiness, but rather as a commitment to meaning. The Torah does not promise us that love will protect us from pain. You know why? Because love can only break your heart. Love cannot break who you are, it can only break your heart. What's his name? Neil Young, right? So, you see, you can learn from everything he done. The Torah comes and offers us a connection that even that there is pain in it, there's also love in it in this world. It's not empty. Sometimes pain also there's a certain substance to overcome the pain and so on and so on. We're not trying to escape anything. And in that matter, a house is not a place in which we rest. A house is not a place, we say, Bait Ne'eman b'Yisrael. A house is not a place that we rest, but rather a place that a person chooses to be present, chooses to be responsible, chooses to be human and humane. If you are in a place or in a relationship that does not allow you to be one of those three things, that's not a home, that's a prison. So I really wish in all of us that we should understand what we need to live, who we need to attach to, and how to turn our lives to one flesh, that there is life, depth, and blessing. Have a beautiful day.